People that have a good communication and collaboration foundation will find the implementation of AI tools to be relatively easy, right? Because they've set up the knowledge in the appropriate locations and given people the right permissions, and everybody has, these things in the right spots, and then AI can work, and it works pretty well. People who are still using email for everything, people who are still doing, individual chat messages and all of these other things, AI is going to be a lot more challenging for them to implement and be effective at, because they don't have this foundation of managing that knowledge, managing that communication and collaboration effectively.
Why did we even find ourselves navigating to this in the first place? It feels a little bit natural, but lay it out for us.
Yeah, so a lot of this has to do with, when you go back in time to when large tech or business process changes occurred, everything was done in email. Everything was done with text messages. There wasn't a lot of other alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you had somebody who was doing Skype for Business. Maybe you had somebody doing, one of the other chat platforms that you had. But those platforms didn't really transform how things were being done. It was just moving emails into these other places.
More of the same, yeah.
And because of that, it didn't really matter. There's not yes, start to go implement a new ERP. Yes, go start doing a new task management, project management tool. Just add that technology on the top of the thing and assume that technology is going to handle all of the communication, collaboration needs for that particular type of task, right?
Mm-hmm.
The world has changed in the last 5 years, maybe even as much as 10 years, depending on how much you've been using the tools. And now you have things like Slack and Teams and these things that go way beyond what email and texting and all these things can do. And if you implement those correctly and you're starting to leverage those in a real way, they will have a huge impact on how you should be doing things like ERPs, things like task management, all of those other things. So if you just go off and you're still currently using email, you're still currently using chat messaging, you're still using these other ways to communicate and collaborate, and then go implement an ERP system, you may be spending way more money than you should be spending. You should be maybe training people on things that isn't really the best way to use it. You're not leveraging what you currently have or the way that you should be communicating most effectively. And so it creates this problem where you really want to solve this problem up here, but you really ought to make sure first that you've transitioned into the modern way of communicating and collaborating before you do that.
Yeah. Okay. So two things. First is what I'm hearing is people can still go try to improve their process and implement things, but it's going to feel similar to how it always has been. If they're not using these tools, but we sort of feel obligated to say there is this other paradigm that has come to market that does actually impact a lot of that stuff and can make a big downstream effect. And so you might want to step back and pause and think about that. And then the second thing was, it reminds me a little bit of a similar comment in my Total Communication Reset course. One of the students said, we were reflecting on why this internal communication aspect is so important. And they basically said, there is so much downstream of this stuff. It's a basis for communicating news and day-to-day work and so many things that it felt like a linchpin to it needed to be right in order for it to translate to all those areas well.
So let's really quick set the scene of what we mean by communication collaboration. I know we talk about it on the podcast a lot, but a couple examples like you're giving are, let's say you have a big announcement that the leadership wants to communicate out to the entire organization. How do you communicate that today? Is it a mass email? Are people left off of it a lot? Is your directory up to date? Some of these are common pitfalls of communication through email. So we're talking about when you communicate changes or even within teams, do you have that foundation set up? Are you using modern tools? That's the communication side of it. The collaboration side, How do you collaborate on documents? Do you send them as attachments back and forth to each other? Mm-hmm. Spoiler, that's not the best way.
Yeah.
So that's the type of example that we're talking about, of setting up a foundation within those spaces. So we'll keep saying communication collaboration a lot. That's what we mean.
Yeah. It's another way to think about it is the way you organize the knowledge that is built within your organization, right?
Yes.
A lot of the knowledge that's built is through conversations, through collaboration, through work that's happening between people. That creates knowledge, and that knowledge needs to be managed, curated, all of that kind of stuff. The other thing that I was thinking about when you were mentioning that is that it's there's a huge marketing boom around AI and around what that does for businesses. People that have a good communication and collaboration foundation will find the implementation of AI tools to be relatively easy, right? Because they've set up the knowledge in the appropriate locations and given people the right permissions, and everybody has, these things in the right spots, and then AI can work, and it works pretty well. People who are still using email for everything, people who are still doing, individual chat messages and all of these other things, AI is going to be a lot more challenging for them to implement and be effective at, because they don't have this foundation of managing that knowledge, managing that communication and collaboration effectively.
The reason why we're talking about this is because at least in my opinion, we feel like we're kind of stumbling on this thing over and over, where it's like, this is really important. And the more that we talk to people, the more it feels like this is a unique line of thinking that we really need to solidify. And so we're like, we need to talk about this. We need to teach people about this, and we need to, make it as easy as possible to help people with it.
So everything that Matt is talking about is kind of pointing to this new product that we're putting together, which is essentially, we've thrown around the term boot camp, but that's, I think, where we're landing on. It's our team communication boot camp, because what we're trying to do is have a cohort of, attendees come into this and actually be with us, on the project together, not teacher instructor, but actually a part of something where for 21 days, or it could be 4 weeks, it could be 3 weeks, we'll figure out timing. But for that amount of time, you're going to change your mindset, set up your structure, get a framework going, and actually start using it. We'll track the metrics, we'll have the progress, see if you're actually doing it. And then be right along with you to support you as you then build on top of that. So we broke it into 3 sessions. And part of why we're having this podcast on communication collaboration is because the first session was all about the mindset of resetting internal communication. So how can we all get on the same page about how we're going to communicate, set up some structure within Microsoft Teams, decide this is how we want things organized, channel, topic-based communication, all of that. And then we built from there. Then we went on to, meetings. You're going to have meetings. Meetings are part of work. They're part of life. How do you use what we just talked about in internal communication to apply getting knowledge out of meetings into a place where everyone at the organization can use that knowledge? Mm-hmm. And we use some AI tools in that as well. AI can be really helpful with meetings. And then we moved forward into getting actual work done. So how do you get projects done? Which got
felt
communication.
Like a release for so many people.
Yeah, right. You've got your communication, you've got your meetings down, and now let's get down to work and actually do the work. So all 3 of those are important. They're all interconnected, but we felt that was the right order. And like you said, we almost stumbled upon it as we were putting everything together, but it feels like you can't talk about the third thing without talking about the first and the second.
Yep. So what was the nature of the workshop, right? It was one client, so it was one team. Can you talk someone through like what the activities looked like and what a day of that looked like?
Yeah, so it's really, our workshops that we're doing with customers is really like Emma said, broken up into 3 sessions. And we have conversations with the customer to kind of understand what their specific needs are within the framework that we believe is the right way to go about helping people with these problems. And when we go through that, it's a 2-hour session. We have a break in the middle. We attempt our best to do content that we might be intermixing content that we might be speaking, demonstrations, activities, interaction with the attendees to really bring it full circle, right? Mm-hmm. So as Emma said, we did some sessions where we started talking about what's your teams look like? How does that work? This is how notifications work. Let's show you what that happens and why it's so important to understand how notifications work, right? There is a bunch of content, and it's really spread it into a couple different things. Some of it is mindset thinking, right? Like, in fact, the first day, a lot of it is heavily on the mindset piece because it is different. Email is not the same as these other tools, and you need to think about them differently. You need to understand how they work differently so that you can kind of put it in a place in your mind that you go, oh, I get it, right? So it's really interweaving those two different things. So, on the meetings things, we did, example meetings where we showed what's going on and, provided feedback. And there was a lot of interaction between us and the attendees.
The common thread through all three of the sessions, which, I guess on the face value, you'd think, well, 6 hours of content, that's a lot. But like Matt was saying, there was a lot of back and forth. And I think the common thread was helping each individual workshop attendee, and I think we had 15 on that 14 or 15, each of them kind of stepping in to become their own champion for their own team within that organization, and understanding that the goal is to not work as just an individual, but to get the knowledge that they're either working on or having meetings about or communicating about to an organizational level. So all three sessions ended up with that as sort of the common goal. How do we stop being so siloed, even in our own brains, all of us on a meeting, but create shared knowledge and use modern tools to share that at an organizational level?
So another thing that we did in this particular workshop that I thought worked really well is provide information about how the organization sits today, right? Giving metrics about how many external emails are you sending versus internal emails? How many chat messages are you sending versus, a lot of people don't know how to get that information and don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to think about that information, right? And I think that was helpful to them, right? I think they took that information and went, oh, I can easily see in 6 months, we should start to see this. And we should start to see this, right?
You can actually measure progress.
Yeah, you can start to measure progress.
So we typically get access to the tenant and are able to look at all of those metrics.
Poke around, sneak around.
Yeah, and create some stories and some visuals from that data in a way that others may not have connected it to, why they're seeing what they're seeing. So.
Yeah.
I'm having flashbacks to you being like, looking at the attendees and being like, and so we know.
We'll know if you're doing it. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's another
what a
thing.
good teacher does, right?
Yeah.
That's what we tell ourselves.
I mean, everybody needs to be held accountable at some level, right? You need a way to know whether or not, it's even if you're making your best effort, when you're able to see, I only made this much progress, it helps check you and make sure that you can reflect on why that is, right? Because the real question is, why didn't you make more progress? And maybe there's a real reason that you can work through and make better.
And I do want to put in that we have that structure for a reason. We do our workshop in these different sessions, and then we stick around for a month, for 4 weeks, where we check in once a week, and we assign some homework and have some expectations. And we are looking to see if any of the metrics are changing, to just track that progress. So it's not like we just give all the information and then leave.
Push you down the hill.
But it is trying to find the right balance between, how much are we still there guiding and how much are we letting them implement on their own?
That's actually one of the biggest differences, I think, between what we're doing and what a lot of organizations have been doing and what we have done in the past. Like, we've done traditional training in the past, more just, instructor-led trainings. But it doesn't feel great, because there's almost no time for them to really sit with it, use it, come up with their real questions and be able to ask those questions and get them answered. So, I'm really excited and happy with how we're able to provide support for people after that workshop, after that process. Just to put a bow on that, the boot camp is for your champions and your leadership. So it's targeted at those groups, right? If you already have them, great. This is a product that you can buy and deliver. We can deliver it right to them, that group of people. If you don't have them, this is a way for you to start to identify them and include them and create that group. And the champions, we have a whole podcast on the champions model. It really is focused at taking that smaller group in the organization and giving them the tools and the mindset to start implementing and spreading that change throughout the organization.
Yeah.